Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Enabling Flipped Learning in a Senior English Classroom. My name is Kendall Havenstein and I will be today's co-host. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items and then I will pass it over to today's presenter. So, first things first, you can earn a certificate for this webinar by logging into training.smarttech.com and then navigating to the title of this webinar. There will be a sea of webinars, but this one will be listed up there front and center. So you can just click on the Smart Complete button by scrolling to the end and that Mark Complete button will pop up. And then you just click on that and it will automatically download a PDF certificate with your name on it to your computer. So next, with your control panel, you can shrink it down to this size if it is in your way, just by clicking on the white and orange arrow. It will shrink down to this size, and then if you want it to pop it back out, you can just by clicking on the arrow again and it'll pop back out to its normal size. So with questions, we will have a short Q&A segment at the end where you will have a chance to ask the presenter directly any questions that pop up throughout. And I will also be here to answer any urgent inquiries, any technical difficulties, anything that needs to be answered, straight away. I will be here monitoring that. So there are two ways you can ask questions or get our attention. Just type it into the question panel here, or you can raise your hand. So I'll be monitoring both any questions that come through and any hands that are raised throughout. And I will do my best to answer any questions, or I may save it up to the end if it's related to the presentation, because 9 times out of 10, the presenter will usually answer it as she progresses through her presentation. So today's presenter, we have the lovely Molly Turner. Molly Turner is an education consultant based out of Sydney. She has 15 years plus experience in education across both the primary and secondary sectors. She's fluent in French and English and is also a SMART certified educator. You can contact Molly directly. Her email and her Instagram handle are just listed under her profile photo off to the right there. Her email is molly@smarttech.com and her Instagram handle is @MollySmartAU. So her Instagram is also updated regularly with all the latest and greatest of what's going on at Smart, but also the latest and greatest of what's going on in the world of teaching in Australia and New Zealand. So there's some awesome content on there if you want to jump on and follow her. And without further ado, I will pass you over to Molly. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks so much, Kendall. I'll just show my screen with everybody and hopefully that's come up. Let me know, Kenny, if it hasn't.
It's up.
And cheers. So really excited to share this resource and do this particular webinar with you today on flipped learning. Look, if you're not an English teacher, that doesn't matter. Obviously, flipped learning is transferable across all subjects and year levels as well. So just that the content that I'm going to focus on today is actually taken from one of my senior English classes. So it'd be great to share that with you, and perhaps, in doing that can inspire you to enhance your own resources, things that you've already sort of made and created, or if you're like me, things that you may have downloaded or bought, from great sites like Teachers Pay Teachers. So look, what I'll do is I'll sort of run you through. At the moment, what you can see here is my Smart Learning Suite online dashboard. And as a senior teacher, I'm mainly using this space here. And I've just been so excited recently with the new editing additions that I can do with my resources. So I used to, obviously, I've used the technology for many years in my classroom, and I'd always use the desktop software to create resources. But now there are some really cool editing features in Smart Learning Suite Online. I'm finding that I'm just using this space more often. So what I'll show you here, and I'll just flick over to the resource here that I have. Like I said, a lot of teachers often borrow some great resources that are out there, you know, particularly now that we can find some fantastic content that is aligned to, you know, the national curriculum and also New South Wales curriculum as well. So this is why I've got a great resource here on the Handmaid's Tale. And so instead of printing all of this out and giving this to my students and most of them losing a lot of the pages, what I do is I upload that to my Smart Learning Suite online site and I enhance it, okay? So this particular resource, the way that I use it is really for the students. You know, we're talking about flipped learning and I really want them to be able to do a lot of their own reading and research and compiling resources for them to use in, you know, their major works, which would be, you know, an essay, for example, as the culminative assessment piece. So that's the purpose of this particular resource here. It's not driving my content in the classroom. It complements my content in the classroom, and it what it does is it enables students to do pre-reading and pre-note taking and pre-activities like we do in flipped learning, and then coming, so I know that they come to my classroom and they are then able to access this content and contribute to discussions and contribute to what I'm doing in the classroom because they have done all of this pre-work. And this particular resource here again is something that they access throughout the entire unit and they keep building on, okay? And so I'll show you sort of what that means. So it's a little bit different obviously from downloading a PDF, printing it out and giving it to my kids and saying, great, take notes, highlight the main key points and you know, complete the activities. When I did that, obviously I'm not getting a huge visual on that. So the beauty of putting it in something like Smart Learning Suite Online is that I can monitor exactly what they're doing and what contributions they've made. That's not the one we're doing today. So here we go. I've uploaded it here to my Smart Learning Suite Online. So what I'm going to do now, so before I share this resource with my students, I edit it. Okay, so I've uploaded, and the way that I upload it, if you don't know already, it's just the plus signal there. So if I hit on plus, I can import a resource. And like you can see there, I can import a notebook, a PowerPoint, or a PDF. So in this case, it's a PDF. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enhance that so it's a more interactive resource. I'm also going to, you know, include collaborative activities as well. So this is something I couldn't do with the PDF kind of printout, if you like. So here it is, and I just slip into edit mode. So once that's just opening up, you can see that I've already sort of started to add things and edit things. So I'm going to walk you through some of those and I'm going to add some stuff as well, okay? So you would have noticed that I have deleted a couple of the first pages, which was really a guide for the teachers. My students didn't need that. So those particular pages, all I needed to do was select it and there's a little bin button down there and I would just hit delete so I can take out any pages that aren't useful. So obviously I want to keep the front page there, but what I'd like to add just to begin with is to get an idea of what my students know before going into this unit of work. Some of them may have already read the book, or some of them may have seen the series, it's very popular now, or seen the 1990 movie. So or just even heard about it and what they had sort of heard about it. So in establishing sort of prior knowledge, what I want the students to sort of look at beforehand is what they already knew, and then they can reflect on what they've learnt sort of throughout the course of the unit. So the best way to do that is Smart Learning Suite Online have these really cool templates already. So I don't have to kind of build everything. There's a lot of really fun stuff I can access. And so if I hit on the plus button just down the bottom here, it brings up everything I can add, okay? And what I want to do here is I want to go down to ready-made activities. And these ready-made activities, so for those of you that follow thinking routines, that's pretty much based on those thinking routines and visible learning, yeah? So being able to sort of draw on and activate prior knowledge or in questioning and reflecting. So by all means, if you haven't found these, have a look, they're awesome. So what I'll do is I'll hit on activating prior knowledge. And what I want is I want an entrance ticket, okay? So I want to know, quickly gather information about what the students currently know about The Handmaid's Tale. So I just select on that and it's given me this entrance ticket and it's come up in this form of what we call a handout, okay? And I'll show you how to make handouts, but this one's already pre-done, so that's great. It says entrance ticket, pretty straightforward. So the next thing that I've done here is on my page, what I've done is I've also then added this page, and I'll show you in a minute how I've done that. But then we always talk about the big ideas in text, okay? So the big ideas in Handmaid's Tale, I want them to continually add to this page, okay? Images, quotes, links to articles, anything that they can find. It's kind of like their big resource hub, okay? My students, I've obviously talked through them with this before, and I want them, this is a work in progress, so I want them to continually add something to here. So I'm gonna do that again just for you. So what I did here was I just went down to the plus button again, and I hit plus, and I went to new page, and then I put in here, so I can select that and I can put here the big ideas in Handmaid's Tale continued. Okay, I might want to make that a nice pretty color so I can select it. There's my little color options. Not many to do now, but we're building on all those colors and everything. And then here I might just remind them to add images, quotes, links. Cool. So this is pretty straightforward, right? Now, that's my content that I've put on there. So what I want to do is I want to select it, drop down box, and I want to lock it in place. Okay. It means then that my students, they can interact on the page, but they can't interact with that content. So they can't delete anything and say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, miss. I didn't see that. So I can lock it in place. Now the thing is I've built this page, but now I need to make it an active page. So I need my students to be, it's kind of like that handout, yeah. So I convert it to an activity because I want to make it active. So I hit convert to activity and I make it an individual handout activity, okay? Because it's for them to put their ideas down. And I just hit that and I can put here little title, the big ideas. Cool. And so that's that. So then I've got those three here. So I've got my establishing prior knowledge and I've got my working pages where I want them to continually add information. The next sort of two pages is sort of setting the context again about the author. So the page itself had this here on Margaret Atwood. What I want to do is I want to also add a YouTube clip. Most teachers are doing that, and so I'll show you how to do that. Now, again, what I really love is I'm encapsulating everything in this one document. So I'm not having to sort of send links, you know, for them to go out of and come back in. Everything's housed in this one document. So it's something that I know they're not going to lose, and it's something that I can also keep an eye on how they've been working through the document. Cool. So here we go with YouTube. I found one and all I did was, again, hit on that plus button. I'm adding content and I add a YouTube clip. We'll see how my bandwidth goes today. And I just put Margaret Atwood. So if you wanted to as well, you know, you could do an introduction to the Handmaid's Tale or whatever you know you might want to put there. So I can find something, I can review it before I add it, I can select it and I hit add, okay, and it then pops it into that document. Now again, what's really great for teachers is the fact that these YouTube clips that we add to these resources when they're in SLSO means that the students aren't getting any ads and it gets stripped away of playing the next the next clip in line, which for me, that's really important. What it also ensures is because it's through Bing, which is what we call a white hat search, it means that no explicit content is going to come up. So I know in the sort of age of remote learning and in recent COVID days, we had lots of trouble with students sort of accessing YouTube and content and stuff that may have taken them places that we didn't want. So you can rest assured that's not going to happen here. Cool. So then I've just added my little YouTube clip, and then there's some other really important stuff as well. Within this particular page that I also want to sort of capture and put on its own page. Before I do that though, what I want to do is I want to add a page so for note taking. So they've watched a clip and they've read the first sort of introduction to Margaret Atwood, but where are they taking their notes? I want to capture it again all here so I can give feedback, I can see what they're doing, and I know the work that's gone into preparing themselves for the essay. So what I do here is just again add a new page. Now it's up to you how you want. You could just have a blank page if you want, and they could just write notes. That's totally fine. But what I like to do is I use Cornell Note-Taking. I don't know if you're familiar, but what I do here is I can actually search for a template. So Cornell Note-Taking, I should put template. Let's see what it comes up with. Yeah, there's a couple of good ones here. It's a really good one. This one here is a really good one. And so I just drag and drop that across and I could make it bigger. I could have one that I already have as a digital copy, right? Which is actually what I do have, because that hasn't come across, the text hasn't come across really nicely there, but you get the idea. The other thing is, I might even be able to find it. Select an image. Where did I put it? It wasn't in photos. Was it in capture? No, sorry. And you could put the Cornell notes in there. Oh, by any means, you can also sort of make, I think this one's a bit nicer. Cool. So then they've got a space where they can write their notes, they've got their summary of their notes, and so the captured information. So you can sort of see how they're starting to build on their knowledge. Cool. Now, on this first page here, I really want the students to keep coming back to their learning objectives, okay? So all of these particular and key content that and skills that we are going to be exploring in this unit of work. I'm just going to make that a bit bigger so you see it. This is really what it comes down to. So target your thinking, okay? These are those key areas of the curriculum that we're covering within this unit of work. So what I did there is I used my snipping tool. So you can just go down to snipping tool there. Oops. I'll just do a new one. And I just grabbed that key piece because I want to pop it onto its own page because I really want to draw attention to the fact that it's really important. We're going to keep coming back and building on this. So if I just hit save, and I can just put it on my desktop, and then what I've done is I've found it with uploading. Yep, so I add image, and there it is there. Yep. And hit open, and it's dropped it in here as a little image file. You see that? So these, what I'm then asking the students to do is for the next 4 pages are going to be dedicated to the next 4 dot points, okay? So the first one there is about critical positions, right? So then I made a page about critical positions. So you can kind of see the development of that. So a couple of things just before we continue. Which I probably should have done. So this one here, obviously they're just reading. That one there's note taking. So I do need to convert that to an activity, which again is that individual handout. And I could put my Cornell notes. Cool. And that one there, they're not on, but this one here again, I just convert to activity. It's that individual handout, and that's critical thinking. So I'm pretty confident that you'd have a firm understanding about the handouts and about adding images in YouTube, okay? So just I know we've only got 10 more minutes, I'll sort of show you a couple of other things as well. So here, what I've done is, because I'm interested, yeah, I can see their Cornell notes, but I'm also interested in the reading of the text. So whilst they're working through this unit of work, they're also reading the text, okay? So I want to sort of tap into where they're at with their prescribed reading and what can they already start contributing. So what I've done here is I've made this little response, and it's a little assessment sort of quiz. And if I go again, if I just to add that, I hit the plus button and it's this one here. So it's a little formative assessment. Where are they at already? Do I need to sort of plug any holes? Have they missed any key content or ideas that we're up to in the reading? Yeah. So I hit on response, and I'll go into the edit mode so you can just see, and it's a really easy platform to build. Okay. So I just hit my my question type, and it's true or false. I've been able to drag an image over. So if I just minus this, a few things open, I could do something like Handmaid's Tale. Obviously, you do it a little bit. Maybe we've got that image, which is sort of, quite indicative of the big ideas, and I would just drag it and drop it into there. Okay. And then you keep building. So then you add another question, and you could add, multiple answer, short answer, true or false. So when my students complete that activity, I can then sort of see what their understanding is already. Obviously, I haven't sort of built that yeah, it's not complete. There's one question. But that's a really cool little feature for you guys to use and to have be able to capture student data and analytics on that. So another one here that I've got in a shouted out, okay? So basically what came before that was a reading page that I turned into a handout where they're looking at this critical view, okay? So there's a little sort of task on there about a provocative question that the students sort of read through. And then what I want them to do is kind of debate that. And so how I've done that is I've put in a shouted out. And the reason why I chose shouted out instead of making a collaborative activity was because I wanted to be able to see the answers and not necessarily the students see what other kids have contributed, so they're not borrowing their ideas. So what they're putting onto this page is actually an original idea, okay? So the critical view continues. So the way that I did that, again, I just sat down to that plus button and I hit the shouted out there. And then in shouted out, all I needed to do was agree and why and disagree and why. I made categories, right, instead of it being randomized. And what I'm asking them to do is to consider the provocative statement on the previous page and to tell me whether you agree or disagree and why that is the reason, okay? You can see that you could add text or images. Of course, I'm just doing text and I hit finish. So you can kind of see how, yes, the PDF is a great document in and of itself, but these activities that I'm building up around it are enhancing the resource, but it's also sort of actively involving the students and giving them this guidance. So I give them this resource. They do it at home, they do it in their spares, they do it in class time when they've sort of finished their own work, and they can continually sort of build on this. And that's all, when we talk about flipped learning, it's putting the responsibility back onto the student and doing that pre-work for any conversations that's going to come up later on in the lessons. So just lastly, I'll just show you one here where it was a collaborative activity. Which page was it? I believe that's watch the scenes, different positions. What's happened to the one? Critical view. Oh, I've lost it. What's happened there? So there was it must be this one. Yeah, great. Okay. So what I've done here as well is, you might notice it's a little bit different, the page size. So I did minus this a little bit here. And if I just go to the view magnifying so you can kind of see. Now this particular task, what they're asking here is to create a visual representation and perhaps to work in pairs to do that, okay? So what I want to do with this particular one here is I want the students to work in pairs or even small groups. And so I want to make it a collaborative task, but it doesn't mean that they have to be working at the same time, but they just tap into it and add content, you know, in a collaborative sort of fashion. So the way that I do that, again, I do need to convert it to an activity, but I'm going to convert it to a collaborative workspace activity. And just before I do that, yeah, that's great. So I turn into a collaborative workspace activity and then it's images and text. Cool. So now I've got some, you know, and then obviously they've got all these other reading pages here, which again I would back end with Cornell notes, or I might even, you know, put some really direct questions in there, build anything as well to do with their essay writing that I know is coming up. So the other thing as well here with the team quiz, I just want to show you this because, look, we did the response, which is great, and because I can actually get the data from that in an Excel spreadsheet. If you wanted to do a more fun kind of, you know, view into where the students are at, you could do a team quiz, okay? So just so you know, again, with that plus button, there's a whole lot of game-based activities. I'm not using a lot of this sort of, you know, in my year 11s and 12s. I use it a lot with the other year levels, but the team quiz here I've used probably mostly. So it's a good way for them to sort of be working in these teams to complete the quiz. Okay, so again, you would just build it much the same as the response, but there's, yeah, you do multiple choice or true false. Okay, now you're probably wondering, well, how do my kids access it? So I'm happy with the editing there, and I'll just lastly sort of show you. There's 3 little dots down the side here, and then I've got share a link. So once I hit share a link, I copy that student link and I can drop it into the chat box. We did this last week. Wonder if we didn't know, Kenny, if that it worked out properly. But look, I'm going to drop it in the chat box there. Okay. Hopefully that's come through. That doesn't look like it has. Oh yeah, it did. Let me just do that properly and send it out to everyone. Now, once that happens, what the students will get is I'm going to go to an incognito window now, just so you can see. I can't sort of do the teacher view and student at the same time. So if I just hit on incognito and I pop that. So I'm sharing that link with my students via email. They're my year 11s and 12s. I email them. Yeah, you could be putting it wherever you know, in Google Classroom or whatever sort of form of communication you have with your senior kids. So they get this link. They sign in to open. They use their Google or Microsoft account. Okay, so their school email will be Google or Microsoft. Okay, and they just need to, where's my student one? Turn a student demo SLS. In any case, they get a link, they click on the link and they access the resource just like this, okay? So I'll go in as my teacher view, but the student view obviously a little bit different, that they can't, you know, push out to people, but they get all of these editing features. So they move through this particular resource, and each time that they then engage with one of the either the work sheets there or the collaborative workspaces as well, it'll populate up here and it sort of automatically saves back into my original resource. So I can tap in after the first week and see who's made a start on everything, and all of the learning is being captured within this one space. So I love that because then I get to, pop into the resource. I can pick out, talking points. So I could go to that, what were their ideas around this that they populated on the shouted out. What is it now? That's from a past one. It's got nothing to do with Handmaid's Tale. What can I then use in my class to generate a discussion and for them to be really leading that teaching and learning? Particularly my year 12s, I really want to hand it over to them and for them to start exploring ideas together, discussing ideas together. And this way I find it's a really sort of nice way for them to do that pre-learning, if you like, around the content, and then bringing it to class, and I'll take from their work and I'll sort of drop it into a conversation starter, or I'll actually design an activity around things that they have populated on those worksheets or populated in those workspaces. So sorry, that just that last little bit in my Google wasn't working. I'm not sure why. We'll just blame Google. Not smart. Just kidding. But I think you guys get a sort of fair idea of how that sort of works, and that they can access that at any time, anywhere, that particular resource, because I've shared that link with them. Cool. Well, we might open it up to questions now, Kenny, and see if anyone. The only thing I think I'll add, guys, is just with those workspaces. So it's a collaborative activity, right? So the workspace, when I set that up in I need to do that live. So I will go through this resource in class with my students. This is your unit of work that I want you to develop and add to. And I'll quickly give them a run through of, specific things that I want them to do. And at that time, I'll hit setup. So I go to my workspace and I hit setup, and depending on how many kids are in the class, obviously, I'll be able to set them into teams. So if I had 6 people in there, it would say, up to 6 teams. I've only got the 1 person in there. So hopefully that all makes sense. Once they've been put into teams, it doesn't matter then thereafter, they'll always be able to access that workspace with their team members at any time. Hopefully that makes sense. Try this out with one of your resources that you already have. So if you use a lot of Notebook, that's great. You can definitely add notebooks, but remember, that doesn't have to be just Notebook. PowerPoint or PDF also, we can upload and do the same. Obviously, I've just done it with a PDF. If your PowerPoints come over and the formatting looks a little bit different because the page sizes are a little bit different, try saving the PowerPoint into PDF, and I think you'll find that it comes across a lot sort of smoother. It's an easy task, obviously, for the students to click on the link and just use their Google or Microsoft school login. Okay, it's important they use their school login, that they pop their name in, and so all of the content that they then contribute to those pages that I've made active will be captured, and I'll be able to really get a lot more visual on their note taking, a lot more visual around, what it is that either resonates with them in a text, how they take notes. So these are sorts of things that, I normally don't really get a lot of visual on as an English teacher, because I'm not taking up their books, I'm not marking their notes, I'm just sort of guessing that they're doing, doing the best that they can. But this way I get that visual, I can really sort of test out and see. So for those of you that aren't aware or really sort of explored Smart Learning Suite online, just the other call out would be, there's a number of training modules here for you that takes you really from step by step. So if you are joining sort of for one of the first times about using the technology and I've taken you into a place where I've lost you, please by all means check out those training, which is taking a while to load. Check out the training videos, and they will go step by step from, starting with an existing lesson. We kind of came in here about, you know, how to create a workspace, but also then sharing with students, okay? So there's the link to share with students. The other way, of course, is to do it live. If you did want to use a resource just live for the first time, if I hit start, for those of you that don't know already, all I would do for the students, I click on the people, I would take them into hellosmart.com and pop in your teacher number. So every one of you, if you've got a Smart account, it means that you've got a teacher number too. So that's obviously the way that you do it live. And then the link is how they access it thereafter.
So I can do a quick wrap up if you didn't have anything else.
That'd be great. No, that's it. Thanks, Kendall.
Okay, so those who came in just after my introduction at the start there, you can earn a certificate for this webinar. So you just log on to training.smarttech.com, navigate to the title of this webinar. I will have it up next Monday at the latest. So you just navigate to that title and then you can scroll to the end because of course you've already attended today. Then if you click on the Mark Complete button, it'll automatically download PDF certificate locally to your computer. So that was the 4th webinar down for the term. I'll just find the schedule. So that's the fourth one down, and we have 2 more to go. So please join us for those. There's loads of valuable content still to come. So on next Wednesday, already June the 3rd, we've got collecting authentic student data and work samples in a blended lesson delivery program, which is super relevant for the times at the moment. And then last but not least, we're going to connect up to see what all the educators around Australia and New Zealand have been doing. So please join us for Oh What a Term and take a look at some of the amazing work our educators have been up to. There's going to be lots of super interesting content in that, seeing what everybody's been getting up to in these creative times. So you can access free resources via the Smart Exchange. We also call it SMEX, if you've heard of it referred to as SMEX. So the link is just down the bottom there, and I'll also put it into the chat as well. So this is a platform where teachers go to share all their lesson content. So there's loads of lessons, and you can search by subject and by age, and there's tons there. So that's also a great resource. And then last but not least, please connect with us on social media. We know that Smart offers loads of content, so we constantly stream it through all our social media platforms. So it's a great way to stay updated without getting overwhelmed, and just staying there just basically as a reminder, because a lot of the time there's so much content that we offer that often people forget it's there. So please connect up with us, and you can also ask us questions through there and stay up to date with all our webinars as well. And I did forget that there is a survey that gets pushed out at the end of this webinar. It'll automatically come up as soon as this webinar ends. And we do take your feedback very seriously. As we are approaching the end of this term, we will be starting to plan for the webinars for next term. So we will take that feedback and we will put it towards the planning for next term. So if you have any topics that you'd like covered, there is a space for you to add that in there. We would love to hear what topics you would like to hear about. Okay, so I will let everyone enjoy their afternoon. Great, thanks a lot. Bye.